What up, guys? This is Coffee with Raz. I'm, of course, Raz. Today we'll be doing a Between the Lines episode of my newest song, From the Fire, featuring this guy,
Hey guys.
Ali Gilani. If you haven't been a part of a Between the Lines episode before, what I do is for all of my, for this song, From the Fire, and for all of my upcoming releases, I'll be doing a Between the Lines episode where we break down the message and intention behind the song, some of the background stories about how the song was created, how it came about, and then we'll dive deep into some analysis on my favorite lyrics from the song, one or two of my favorite lyrics, and any featured guest in the future on any songs, and specifically for this one, for Ali, his favorite lyrics. But yeah, let's get right into it. Introduce yourself.
Oh, for sure.
A little bit. Say, you don't have to say much.
I know. I'm not trying to go off on anything, but my name is Ali Gilani. I am a filmmaker, full-time filmmaker. I work at a charity, and also I'm working on some music on the side. And
you shot the video.
For
From the Fire. He also shot the video for From the Fire,
which was a lot of fun. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. I think
Alhamdulillah.
Coming up with that entire concept was both of us, when we were trying to think of the whole idea of the
video itself.
Itself, it was so much fun. But shooting it itself as well was a process. Yeah,
and it was interesting because we were really trying to pull together. I mean, at least on my end, I was thinking about it this way: is the concept of the song and the topic obviously is very heavy.
Yeah,
and we were trying to do it justice without like a big production.
Yeah,
and just really be true to ourselves and the message and our experiences.
Yeah,
without going overboard, because I think the message and the intention in this song that I had, and I think I could speak for you a little bit when I say that you had, the intention with this song was something that not, the intention is a concept that we're still growing through.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
And so it was hard to, and that'll lead us into our message and intention of the song. Is like, it was hard. It's not like something we've been through, an experience we had in the past where we were just recalling it, and we've had time to process and analyze it.
Yeah.
And then we were like, okay, how do we take that fully complete experience and put it into visual and audio format? It was like we had both just realized where we were in the theme of this song. I mean, ultimately it's Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
It's the racial discrimination and racism and straight up murders, specifically in the US, and in regards to the George Floyd murder.
Yeah.
That we were still processing.
Yeah. And
I think, at least on my end, it was tough on the video end to be like,
how do we visually explain this?
Where we're at. Like,
yeah.
How do we, and I guess that goes into the message and the intention of the song. And I mean, just so you guys know, you guys that are listening, it's always cool to collaborate on a song and then do these episodes.
Yeah.
Like the Between the Lines of what goes on in the background or what the purpose of the song was, because I think I have my own intention behind the song. And if it was just me and it was just one of my other songs and there's no features, then I have my intention, and that is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's cool when you collaborate, because your intention and message that you're trying to portray on your vocal or the writing you may have done or whatever, it could be different.
Yeah.
We're on the same page.
Yeah.
We have a similar experience. That's why we're doing
the vision
something.
is the same.
But what it means to you and what your intention with it is might be different. I mean, mine was a lot about unlearning.
Yeah.
Like, I knew this term unlearning, but I didn't really know it. Do you know what I mean? And so with the George Floyd murder and the Ahmaud Arbery murder before that, and the stream of them that have happened then and continue to happen, like in the past, and continue to happen now.
Yeah.
At first, my intention really was, I guess ultimately the intention and message of the song was, it came down to, I think I need to give myself a message and like look at myself really hard in the mirror, and realize that I assumed that I knew what the Black community went through.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a Caribbean community, and I grew up with around a lot of people from the Black community, like Black artists, Black friends. I have family And so in my head, I was kind of like, oh, I know what the black experience is like, without actually saying. In the back of my head, I'm like, yo, I know what it's like.
Yeah.
Because I grew up from the Caribbean community, and I grew up around like listening to a lot of black artists, a lot of hip hop artists.
Yeah.
I grew up around. I had a lot of black friends. There's black people in my family. I felt like I understood what the experience was like.
Yeah.
But the reality is, like, I'm not black.
Yeah.
I've never dealt with those prejudices and that level of discrimination. And so this song, to me, the message and the intention really became, how do I look myself in the mirror and really start to understand the concept of unlearning?
Yeah.
Not just read a couple articles and then think I know what's going on. So for me, this whole thing, the message and the intention behind From the Fire was a reminder to myself that there's a lot of work to be done in my own heart and my own home before I can expect other people or the system to change, because there's so many things I have to unlearn that I've grew up learning from a Caribbean, somewhat Desi, Muslim household and community and background. I was like, there's so many prejudices I grew up with, just hearing comments in the background, hearing comments about what would happen if I came home with a black woman as my fiance, or what it would be if even worse if a girl from our community came home with a black guy, and what that would mean and how bad that would be. It's like, well, all bets are off the table, you know what I mean? And so for me, I was like, wait a minute, I'm upset about this George Floyd murder, and I'm upset about Breonna Taylor, and I'm upset about Ahmaud Arbery, and I'm upset about everything. And I'm pointing the finger at everybody police, else, and I'm pointing the finger at the system, and then I turn around and, like, in my own house, people are making slight racist comments and stuff. You know what I mean? And so this song for me became much more about, like, well, take a step back and, like, let's look in the mirror, first myself, and then as a community, being brown and Muslim, and just being like, yo, let's try to at least have the difficult conversation. And it sucked. It still sucks. But that's what I wanted to come out from this song. I don't know about like what you thought about what we were making it, or the message you got from it for yourself, or what you were trying to...
From the song? I think it's in the lyrics itself. It's like consistent theme throughout, right? In especially the way that the song is constructed, it automatically changes into self-reflection. Like, it's going into the part where it's like, okay, this is not necessarily about all these events that are taking place. You've kind of like given your opinion of what those events have taken place and what you feel about that. But this is about me, essentially. And I know we're not supposed to just go into the song just yet.
No, let's do it.
But okay, before we're going that way.
We'll go into some of the background of the story.
That's the second
phase,
So for in that sense, it's like going straight into it. It's a part where you're going to reflect on how this is my situation, and this is the situation I was completely unaware of, essentially. And for that reason alone, like, you know, it takes such a perfect turn in the song itself that I think the first few words were like, where was I? In the second verse. The
second half of each verse, I ask a question.
Exactly. There's a question there where it's like, this is all the experience that's been taking place, but what am I doing, essentially, right? And what my mentality is. And for me, when I saw that, it's something that I resonate with as well, because in this whole movement that's been taking place in the past few months, it's one of those things that it's very easy, and a lot of people have been talking about this, it's very easy to go ahead and share something, right? And the world of social media.
You mean like in the moment? Just
because it's so instant. And
I didn't do it right. Continue,
It's so easy to go ahead and try to show your support for a certain cause. And it's so easy to go ahead and share some post that somebody has, and, like, you know, and you can go ahead and show your perspective on it right there and then. But you honestly, there's no type of deep thought that you've taken place and like, you know, really thought about that subject. And social media does that to us so
like
easily.
A subject this deep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and not being from that community.
Exactly. Because for people like myself, I think I've been kind of like one of those people who has done that, right? I did do that. And this particular situation, I think people started talking about how you need to educate yourself and you need to go ahead and try to like not just share, because it became one of those things. This is not something that you should just let go of.
Just a reaction and then it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Which is almost every other social, like you see it on social media all the time. Like there's so many people. It's like waves. Like, you know, it comes and goes.
It's
about
not a trend.
Yeah, exactly.
This isn't a trend.
And the thing that was different about this entire movement was that it was like all about that entire first part of your song, the second part of your song, where it's like self-reflection. It's like you need to go ahead and look into your own communities. And what I appreciate from the Black community the most is the fact that they called it out, right? You can go ahead and now start to think about exactly, yeah, you know what, this is actually so true. And people start being vocal about the problem itself. That this is not just something that to be taken lightly. This is something that you know that you don't want to talk about it, but this is something that is there, that is present. And
it's easy for us to share the post. I mean, it was easy for me to share a post and be angry about it, but then, well, what happens next?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it was. You know, just going ahead and sharing the post was easy, but what are you going to do after that?
Yeah, and it's interesting, like, on the same note, I guess, a big thing, I guess on like the background of how the song came about.
Yeah.
Like we talked a little bit about the message and the intention that we both kind of share in the track, but when I look at the story of like what happened when I started putting this song together, was like shortly after George Floyd was murdered. I was immediately upset. And then it turned into like anger.
Yeah.
And so I was pointing the finger at like the police, and then I was pointing the finger at the system, and I was like, what do I got to do to make a difference, and how do I make an impact? And through all of that, I did things where I just reshared things, or I posted a picture, and I had like you said, as much as it should not be, and it's not the Black community's responsibility to teach us, when I shared a certain picture, I had people from the community reach out to me, alhamdulillah, and tell me like, yo, you should think about what you're posting and how you're reposting it, because it's a lot, like the reaction and how it affects the Black community can be triggering if you post a certain type of picture. And then I realized, I was like, wait a minute, I'm sitting here pointing the finger at the system and the police and like white people and privileged people. And I was like, I thought I was doing something good by posting this, and it turns out that I actually don't know anything about how to help this community. And that's what hit me. Like when that happened, I remember I didn't speak for like 3 days straight. Like I literally didn't say a word for 3 days. And I was angry. I was pointing the finger at the police, the system, this, that, like people around me. And then I posted that picture and I got those comments come back to me, and then I paused and I realized like something I was forgetting to do that we're encouraged to do as Muslims, especially, is to point the finger at yourself first, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what am I doing? Before I start blaming and looking at what other people are doing, what am I doing?
As an individual,
as an individual, as a Muslim, as an individual. And so when I started looking at myself, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, I don't understand anything that's going on. If I posted a picture and didn't realize there was the impact it could have, the negative impact, then I started thinking like, and this is when I hit like kind of my lowest point, is when I was in not talking for like 3 or 4 days, is I realized like, wait, what else am I doing every day that I think is helping, that's actually a part of the problem, and perpetuating the problem as opposed to being a part of the solution. And that's when this song really came to life, is when I started realizing that there's so much for me to fix in my own heart and my own home, and then by extension, because in the Muslim community at large, I think specifically in the brown Muslim community, like the Desi Muslim community, it's heightened, or it's worse maybe.
Yeah.
But in general, in our Muslim community in Toronto, racism against blacks is unbelievable and unbelievably common. Right? Almost to like the point where it's like a joke at dinner sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know what I mean? And I realized, I'm like, whoa, when I point the finger at myself, there's so many more fingers to point.
Yeah.
Like police, the system, history, like imperialism.
Yeah.
And then I go to myself and I'm like, me? My aunts, my uncles, my community, my friends. I'm like, well, there's way more fingers to point.
Yeah.
And what am I doing every day to change that? And we know as Muslims that like God will never change the state of people until they change the state of their own hearts.
Yeah.
And then I realized like, whoa, if I want to make a difference, I have a lot of work to do, right?
Yeah.
And then that's why you hear and we'll get into the lyrics now, which is great, but that's why you hear the song opens up with me for about 4 lines, I think it is.
Yeah.
Pointing the finger at the system and the police.
Yeah.
Right? Like I say, it's like they got nooses hanging from their belts. Handcuffs and halos know each other well.
Yeah.
Another man lynched in the street or the cell. Sirens assigned for a murder and well. And that's all that I could say, because naturally in the progression that I went through shortly after the George Floyd situation, I realized that that's all I had left to say about other people. You know what I mean? And then it was like a natural progression for me in what I was experiencing to be like, but where was I when, you know what I mean? Like, but where was I while they were fighting through hell?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
And then I did the same thing in the second verse because it was very natural for me in what I was going through. But yeah, I guess with that we can get into the lyrics a little bit. Just so you guys know, part of what we do in between the lines, these sessions, is we break down some deep analysis on some of the lyrics. Favorite lyrics from me, so you get an insight into why I wrote what I wrote or what I was thinking, because it's cool to see what other people think. Like I might write it a certain way and this is what it's supposed to mean. But when there's
a completely different perspective looking at the song and like, oh snap, that's
exactly.
Part,
And when you release that song and you give it away to people, the meaning changes, and I have no control over that. So if it means something to somebody else,
of course,
then that is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And it's true to them, and that's the beauty of music, I think. But on top of that, I like to share my perspective so people have an idea of what's going on. Let's get into some of the lyrical parts of it. Yeah. Let's try to dive into some of our favorite lyrical parts. I guess I'll start.
Go for it.
If that's cool.
Obviously, it's your song.
And so we chatted about, so like looking introspectively and trying to really put a mirror up to myself. I always take that initially from like an Islamic perspective. So as a Muslim, there's ways that are outlined for us to look at ourselves, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to analyze ourselves.
Yeah.
And so what I'm going to talk about lyrically is like the whole second verse.
Yeah.
Well, the first half of the second verse and then one line in the verse. But anyway, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
And so the second verse starts off with, I claimed I hated it deep in my heart. All of these years I've been playing my part. Happy with having the weakest of faith. I pray that my tongue finds the courage to start. And so that piece actually, I guess if you listen closely, I got that from a pretty famous hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, and obviously I'm not quoting it, but he said, if you ultimately, I'm going to paraphrase, if you see evil, stop it with your hand. And if you can't stop it with your hand, stop it with your tongue. And if you can't stop it with your tongue, hate it in your heart. And the part that always gets me is, he said, and that is the weakest level of faith. Like, that is the weakest faith.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, and I started pointing the finger at myself and starting to try to be a little more conscious of what the real situation was, like what's going on with the black community and what my position was within that. Yeah. Was I part of the problem or was I part of the solution? When I looked at that, I realized like, whoa, there's tears
Yeah.
to how we deal with
Wow.
these evils, right? And if there's tears to it, what tier do I sit in? And like some of you guys may have heard my song from back in 2018 actually called Chick Chick Bang.
Yeah.
When I first started writing this song, it was kind of like Chick Chick Bang. I was angry. And this time around, I mean, I think for a lot of people, the George Floyd situation hit different.
Yeah.
Like it hit very different, and it hit me different. And so I started writing in that anger, but it wasn't working. Like when I wrote Chick Chick Bang, I wrote that in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like straight up. It didn't take me very long because I articulated my anger right away.
Yeah.
This time it wasn't working, right? And when I put the mirror up to myself, I realized that like there's levels to how we deal with this. And I thought I was, when it comes to racism, I thought I was that person who was
top tier.
Top tier.
Yeah.
Like I hate it, right? Like I'll fight anybody about it. Like I'll do. And then it turns out that I released Chick Chick Bang in 2018.
Yeah.
And when I started really looking at myself, I went, what did I do from 2018 until now other than release that song?
Jeez, yeah.
And yeah, music has an impact.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people talk to me about it, and they've been impacted by it. Alhamdulillah, that's dope.
Of course, yeah.
But what have I done? This is what I started asking myself.
Yeah.
What have I really done since 2018?
Yeah.
Other than hate it in my heart.
Wow.
And if I hate it in my heart, that's great, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's great. That's,
Yeah.
But don't forget, this is what I had to tell myself, is don't forget that is the weakest level of faith. And so when I wrote that part, I remember almost crying because I was like, I'm weak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't feel weak. I don't think I'm weak.
But in truth.
But the hadith is telling me that I'm weak. And then I realized like, whoa, there's so much for me to do in my own heart and my own home just to get into the second level strength of faith, which is doing something with my tongue.
Yeah.
And yeah, I put out a song and I yelled about it.
Yeah.
Cool. For me to get to the second level of like level up and be like, I hate this evil, so I'm going to use my tongue. I realize that has nothing to do with me putting out one song, right?
Individually.
It starts at your heart and in your home.
Yeah.
And I remember you were there. I was in the booth, and the second half of that verse, I say, all these years I've been playing my part, happy with having the weakest of faith. I pray that my tongue finds the courage to start fighting for freedom and fighting for peace in my own home and not just in the streets.
Yeah.
Each time I laughed off a joke when I could have spoke, or I was just feeding the beast.
Yeah.
And then I said, but where was I when we needed the truth? Fearing your feelings and fearing I'd lose a mother, a brother, a sister, a father, a cousin, a couple acquaintances too.
That was my favorite part.
And that...
I know that I'm supposed to share that later, but that part itself.
And when I rapped, if you remember, I stopped in the booth and was like, I had to tell you guys, like, before I rapped, where was I when we needed the truth?
Yeah.
Fearing your feelings and fearing I'd lose a mother, a brother, a sister, a father, a cousin, a couple acquaintances too. The night before we recorded that song, and this is why this song gets me emotional, and it's probably the most, like, anxious-driven song I've released, is because I was rapping that in the booth on Sunday or Saturday, and the night before, that happened at a kitchen table in my family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, each time I laughed off a joke when I could have spoke, I was just feeding the beast. Like, a racist thing was said at my table, and I laughed it off. You know what I mean? Like, I laughed it off. And then the next day I was rapping about it.
Yeah.
Asking myself, where was I when I needed to speak the truth? But what I was scared about was telling my mother, my brother, my sister, my father, my cousin, or an acquaintance, a friend.
Yeah.
I was scared to give them that truth out of fear of losing them. You know what I mean? And it's not something I figured out. Like, I don't say this because I think I figured it out. And what I'm saying is, I'm rapping about it while I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
And like earlier on, I mentioned, like, a lot of times as artists, even in film, I'm sure, and in music, you know for sure, you've lived an experience, you analyze it, you process it, and then you talk about it.
Yeah, express it.
At least that's how I usually do it.
Yeah, no, of course.
This was the first time that like I'm living the experience. I have not processed it. I don't understand it fully.
Yeah.
And I'm rapping about it, and so I'm living it right now.
Yeah.
And why I don't say that because I'm proud of it. I say that because it hurt to realize that like in the booth I realized like I am a part of the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's a tough
like
thing
it chokes
do.
me up right now to be like, wait a minute, this thing that I hate so much, I perpetuate it.
Yeah.
And I did it last night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so anyways, those lyrics...
That's a tough place to be.
It is. And I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person there.
Yeah.
But I feel like even that is what I'm learning now, that I'm actually trying to take the time. And obviously there can always be more time taken. But as I try to take the time to really dig into unlearning... Because, we learn from TV, music, like...
all these forms of media.
All these forms of media.
Yeah.
Growing up our entire lives, while I try to unlearn these things, and then their culture and your background and your family and where you come from, right?
Yeah.
Again, especially from a brown Muslim community.
100%.
Specifically, Desi Muslim community.
Yeah.
All of those prejudices, when I realized how much unlearning needed to be done, it's like, it's shocking.
Yeah.
And it's a rude awakening, right? It's not something that I've like even come to terms with yet, which is why I think the song was special for me in a different way.
Yeah.
And then the last point I'll make is on the opening lyrics of the second verse, where we were talking about the levels of faith, right?
Yeah.
So I realize I'm in the weakest level of faith. Is that where I want to be? It's not wrong.
Yeah.
Right? It's not wrong. But is that where I want to be on this topic?
Yeah.
I thought I was on the highest level.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, based on my actions, not what I was thinking I would do. On my actions, I just hated it in my heart. And there's so many levels to get through that, like, the second level up is stop it with your tongue.
Yeah.
Stop the evil with your tongue. But I didn't at the kitchen table. And that, I think, was the rudest awakening for me. Was I thought I would stop it with my hand.
Yeah.
The highest level of
when
faith.
the situation came into place,
when it was presented to me in my face, I couldn't even stop it with my tongue.
Yeah.
And that's when it really hit me that like I have so much to do.
Yeah.
And it's over, and I'm sure this is like this for a lot of people.
No, I resonate with that.
It's overwhelming.
I resonate with that because there are many situations that you can come up with, and like I mean personally, I like grew up in Pakistan, right? I was born and raised in Pakistan, so.
And my wife is Pakistani.
Yeah,
so,
it's like that type of culture.
Not the same.
Yeah, but it's not. If you say that to any person, I think in our generation, that this is something that there is a problem within your families, they won't deny it, and it's something that any person will accept, but they are not proud of. Right? It's not it's something that people want to talk about. We don't talk about it like at all, and we feel uncomfortable if it is presented to us. In this moment in time, it's been like, exposed in a way where we need to actually, people are starting to understand like, yes, this is something that we need to check. It's that moment of clarity. And I think coming back into the song itself, it's the point that, you start listing out the people that are closest to you, that I realized what the song was really like, talking about in terms of like, this is really the situation. Because again, coming from, born from Pakistan, born and raised from Pakistan, these are the people that are surrounded, around me. Your friends, your family, your brother, sister, your father, your mother, all of these people are the people that are the most important to your life. And you see this type of thing that takes place so easily and so effortlessly. Yeah. And it's something natural. And it's because it's so natural that you never saw it. And then there is this moment of clarity that you see it for the first time. And it's so difficult to go ahead.
You've seen it all the time, but you never see it for the first time.
Yeah. It was always there. There was always a moment of like,
that it takes us
this long.
George Floyd.
Yeah.
Like that's, but sorry, continue. Yeah.
No, of course, no. At that point as well. And it's that moment of being like, yeah, I always knew this was a thing that was there, but it took this moment to actually come into play, for me to actually click it in. And it is more of a reason now to actually go ahead and try to stop it from happening anymore, for making sure that the next generation doesn't happen to, this is a thing that is consistent right now, and we need to make sure that it doesn't happen right now, but also to make sure that how am I going to go ahead and develop that culture for my kids, for the next generation,
within your family,
within
in
your
Canada.
family, exactly,
not in Pakistan
because that's a place that was home before, but now this is the new place that I'm in right now. This is the environment that I create for the people that are around me. This is the environment that I'm around,
that you create, that you have power over
individually, right? Because you start looking at yourself in this entire situation. This is, you have control over this. Don't try to say that this is not something I have control over. That is the biggest thing, that people can actually easily try to be like, oh, I'm not part of the problem. But really there's a whole movement that can call out on it. There is a problem. You can't be just stubborn enough to actually ignore it.
You can't be the only one.
Exactly.
That was me, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you can't ignore it. The voice that's there, and the voice that's inside your head, the back of your head, that's saying, I don't feel right about this. And it's in that moment, like you're saying, like, in that moment when there was a laugh of the joke, in that moment, the voice in the back of your head,
Shaitan's voice was in the back of your head.
Bro, exactly.
Yeah, like straight up.
That's what it is.
That's the devil.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. In those moments, right? What is going to be our response? And I honestly feel like, you have been very, vulnerable in expressing, the situations that you've been through in this song, right? I feel I resonate with almost every single thing that's been said over there, even though it's an individual thing. I think any person,
I wasn't born in Pakistan. Yeah.
It's like I've lived the whole experience, I guess, and as a Pakistani, I guess, as a coming into this country and then being in a Pakistani household and everything like that, which is I'm grateful for, but there is that problem that is there. And I can attest to it because I know, and when you said, again, the song itself, because we're from two different worlds, it still is there. Nobody can deny it at that point. And for me, when you just started showing me the lyrics, it was just, you can't look away from it. It's there. It's the truth.
Yeah, and it's an unfortunate truth.
Yeah.
And I think that it's extremely unfortunate. It's more than unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's devastating. And I think that part of, what am I trying to say here? Part of the journey I went through when I was writing this song was me realizing that it took me a week to just process everything that was going on. A week. Okay, let's say 7 days.
Yeah.
It took me to process that. For 3 to 4 of those days, I didn't say a word.
No.
Right? I'm comfortable with saying I've been depressed in the past.
Yeah.
Like actually depressed, and I was having those symptoms for that week. And part of the turning the finger onto myself was what the hell have I been through?
Yeah.
Yes, it should affect you deeply. I think anybody, if you even saw seconds of that George Floyd video, it should affect you deeply, right? It should. But I'm sitting up in my room feeling depressed for a week and not talking. And I think a big part of this song and the intention and the message for it behind me is behind it for me is that I'm sitting there feeling depressed and being upset and down and distraught.
Yeah.
And I'm not even black. I could still get up the next day and walk around the street and be oblivious to anything that's going on.
100%.
I don't have to... And it's not it doesn't happen in Canada.
Yeah.
The level of police brutality might not be as high or just the same.
Yeah.
But it's happening everywhere.
It is.
In Canada as well.
Yeah.
And it's not happening to me. I don't even get stopped at the border.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I could get stopped because I'm Muslim.
Yeah.
My dad's a convert. My last name is not a Muslim last name. So I don't even get stopped based on my passport. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm sitting up here crying and depressed, feeling depressed, and being like, and that was like, when I turned the finger on myself and looked at myself in the mirror, I was like, what are you crying about?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yes, we should be upset, and you should, but what are you crying? What am I crying about to the point where it paralyzed me? Like, I should be doing something.
Yeah.
And then I think, for me, the intention behind the song really became, try not to just talk about it.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a song. We talked about this early on when we started putting the song together. I wanted something that was, when I listened back to it, it would prompt me, or at the very least, in my lowest days, make me feel guilty a year from now. If I listened back to my own song and then reflected on my year and didn't do anything in between.
Yeah.
To like unlearn.
Wow.
At the very least, to unlearn.
Yeah.
Because that's how upset I was. I was like, okay, if I'm this upset and I don't have to deal with this every day, can you imagine? I can't even imagine what the Black community goes through, what they're going through and what they've gone through, right? You know what I mean? And so for me, the intention of the song really became, like, it grew while we were making it, and it became like a way to hold myself accountable, I guess you can say, inshallah. But yeah, was there any, we'll wrap up with that, but was there any more like comments or things you had on the lyrics? We went through the message and the intention. We talked about the background a little bit.
I mean, pretty much
any points you wanted to hit?
I think in terms of the way that we've put it, there's so much you could say about this topic, right? There's so much that there is to be said, and I think at the end of the day, for the lyrics part, obviously, I've already said my piece on it. Like, you know, that part that was there on the second verse, at the ending of the second verse, where you listed every single family member, every single person that's around in your life, and you start to, you know, question whether or not you're in the right place with your family members, with your friends, whether you're in the right circles, all those type of things. So that was, you know, my favorite part. And you can talk about this conversation, you know, have this conversation, you know, continuously have it. I just think that at the end of the day, for myself, this entire song, you know, recording it and everything, what it meant for me was the moment of, you know, it will remind me, and for you is a different reminder. I think for me, it's a reminder of knowing that moment of, you know, having that moment of clarity, you know, and this understanding that there's so much more to be done.
Like remembering the time where it became clear. You mean?
Yeah, okay, because this is for I think anybody who's in our generation, this is a moment in history, right? And for this
Definitely.
It is. And you know, there are other people who will have, you know, different types of ways to actually remember this. This will be one of those moments as well that I will add on to the whole, you know, that this in a few months that have actually taken place, for me to go ahead and actually look back at this and be like, that is the mindset that I had back then, and how far, again, same thing as what you're saying, being able to come back a year after that or 2 years from there and look back at something like that and be like, I did become a better person, hopefully. Hopefully,
or
inshallah.
you didn't, but
or you didn't.
We did.
Yeah, if
like,
you're not, then
us.
you got that's a different story.
Yeah.
At that point, but all we're trying to do is that we make sure that we become that person that we're trying to be, and you know, and do our best at the end of the day. And hopefully, we can look back at this and be like, that was the moment that I actually, you know, made a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Cool. Well, thank you so much.
No problem
for being here again.
Thank you for having me.
Guys, thank you for joining us. This was Coffee with Raz, between the lines of From the Fire, featuring Ali Gilani, this guy right here on the vocals, the singing vocals on the hook and bridge and outro. It was dope. It was fire.
It was amazing. Amazing experience.
But yeah, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for having coffee with me.
I had tea.
And my guests. He had tea. If you guys ever get on here, you can have tea as well. It's not just coffee. But thank you guys. You can stream From the Fire featuring Ali Gilani on all streaming platforms. And this video will be uploaded. The audio will be uploaded to all podcast platforms, but you can hit the link in my bio or read the captions in my posts, and you'll see where to find it. Thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you next time on Coffee with Raz.
Sounds good.
I claimed I hated it deep in my heart. All of these years I've been playing my part. Happy with having the weakest of faith. I pray that my tongue finds the courage to start fighting for freedom and fighting for peace in my own home.